Hey everyone! In this episode, we're going to talk about the film Beautiful Boy. We're going to take a look at the performances by the actors and also see if the film was able to accurately portray drug addiction. We're also going to take a look at the film's overall message. This is episode 85 of the Reel-ists Podcast. Team Reel-ists, make some noise!
Oh, dang. We're live?
You're supposed to make some noise, Oscar. There you go. Yeah, that's right. Keep it up. Keep going. I'm just kidding. Oh my God, oh, guys. Okay, welcome to the Reel-ists Podcast. First and foremost, thank you so much for checking us out. If you are new, this is an amazing podcast, and you should definitely stick around for the entire episode. And after you find out how amazing we are, you should go back and listen to our 84 previous episodes if you haven't done so already.
Challenge. Ooh.
It's the Reel-ists Podcast Challenge. It's going to go viral. It's going to sweep the nation.
Are you doing the Reel-ists Podcast Challenge?
If you are a returning listener, thank you so much for returning. We always appreciate you guys. And really quick, we want to let you know you can catch us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Team Reel-ists. That's Team Reel-ists, no dash. You can also leave us a comment on YouTube, or you can leave us a comment and rate us on iTunes.
Yes.
Ooh, I don't know why it's always so hard to say that part. The iTunes part, I want to say Apple Music. It's like I always want to say Apple Music, and it's not Apple Music.
More so
until I release my EP, then I'll be on Apple Music. But thank you guys for checking us out. I totally skipped the introductions. I'm Donnie, by the way.
And I'm Oscar, the fan. Oh, they heard from the fans. Right. The crowd's cheering your name.
And we have our producer, Ruben, here.
Hi,
he says. And this is the Reel-ists Podcast. So,
where we left, I could go back to
just rewind. Just start backtracking here.
That'd be funny.
All right. Well, I don't think we have any housekeeping, so we should just jump right into the episode that we are covering today.
Yes.
We watched a film called Beautiful Boy, starring Timothee Chalamet and Steve Carell and some other great actors.
And others.
And an entire cast of just amazing actors. So, as always, we can start it off with some quick thoughts. I'll throw it to you, Oscar. What did you think initially as we were walking out of the theater? Beautiful Boy wrapped up. You and I are walking to the car, and I say, Oscar, what'd you think?
I don't know exactly what I said word for word, but to interpret what I was thinking, it definitely was an emotional ride to see that storyline. I don't have any kind of close kind of situations to be like, oh, I know what they're going through, but to just be able to experience that in a film and be able to see the phases, the cycles, and all that with drug addiction. You know, it's one that it's really hard to watch and unfortunate because, you know, he was a good boy. Not to make it sound like
he was a beautiful boy.
He was like a good person, and you know, he had a lot of potential, but it was just this one thing that was causing him to go down and essentially dragging people down with him. And there was like a lot of good things that the movie did that kind of showcased that, you know, he wanted to get out of it, but just found himself stuck in it. And yeah, drug addiction is no joke. So this one really was able to emotionally get you caring for the character, just like the dad, just like Steve Carell, to kind of be like, you know, go through that. We're going to get through this together, to, you know, losing that little bit of hope. And I mean, the movie ends on a positive note, I want to say, and with like a little bit of question, because it wasn't exactly shown. It was told to us. But yeah, I mean, it was just definitely one of those where it was just like, man, I don't know really what to say, because that topic is very, very tough to really just analyze and consider, because we could all say, you know, oh, what you should do, or, you know, I wouldn't go do that, but it's one that you really don't know until you're in it, and you don't know you're in it until you're deep in it. So yeah, very, very emotional journey for us to experience this kind of story. Very realistic. I didn't think like any of it was played for movies, outside of just, you know, the dialogue. The dialogue, you know, between the dad and the son was, you know, a little bit movie script like, but everything else, was realistic, and that was really cool to see.
Okay. According to Google, teenager Nicholas Sheff seems to have it all. Good grades, editor of the school newspaper, actor, artist, and athlete.
Did they say actor too?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I guess he was...
Must have been deleted scenes.
Yeah, right? When Nick's addiction to meth threatens to destroy him, his desperate father does whatever he can to save his son and his family. Yeah. My thoughts on the film were, I thought it was... It's one of those things where I don't want to say it was good because it dealt with like some very unfortunate situations, but I thought it was depicted. It was presented in a good way.
Yeah.
I thought the actors. It was starring Timothee Chalamet and Steve Carell. Those were the main two, and I think both of them did really good job. I really liked they had a really good father-son dynamic, and it felt pretty believable. Like I felt like what you kind of said before, Oscar, like I really felt for Nick, like as the father, like through his eyes and seeing someone who, he loved and raised and, seemed to, be bringing up this beautiful boy, but this good young man, and then his life just started control because of breaking to kind of, watch that unfold. So I think it did a good job at getting me emotionally invested in it and me wanting to care. Because I'll tell you at first, initially, I was like, oh, he's just like a privileged kid who's like experimenting with drugs and, has his daddy come in to save the day anytime he has something wrong with him. That's what initially I felt like. But then as the movie progressed and we kept seeing things unfold, then I started to, my feelings towards it started to change. So I started to become more sympathetic towards it. But I think the performances were really, really great. Timothee Chalamet was pretty awesome. And I told you, I was like, man, he's a good crier. A lot of crying in this movie, a lot of emotional scenes for both of them and yelling and argumentative. But it was definitely something it really grabbed my attention. I will say there was one scene in there when I think it was in the middle when Nick was leaving the house and his stepmom was trying to talk to him and calm him down, and he kind of got in her face, and then he like stormed off, and then the dad came out and he was like screaming. Remember that part?
Yes.
Steve Carell was like yelling and he was like, "You did this is your fault." And it just seemed because we've heard him scream in other movies that were like comedies.
Oh yeah.
So
The Office.
And The Office and like, the 40-Year-Old Virgin. And so it's
smart,
like, so to hear him screaming, and particularly in that scene, it kind of took me back to like a comical moment. But I had to go, okay, he's not being funny. Don't laugh. But it's just hard to ignore, because that's how we were introduced to him. Like it was, a comedy. What is it called?
A comic, I guess.
A comedic actor.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden now he's taking this dramatic turn, which is.
And he has another one coming out.
I know, like he's just totally switched up the genres on us. But what did you think of the performances?
I liked Timothee's performance. Steve Carell, I felt like he brought just enough, but it wasn't anything that to me is going to stand out to be like, oh, this was something Steve Carell created. I felt like this was just him doing a dad role, but very basic. Like, I don't know if it was just maybe he was just not connecting with this father trying to care for the son. If it was that kind of aspect, maybe if it was the dialogue that just wasn't serving him right. But this one to me just seems like he was just, I want to say like filling in. Like he was filling in the role of the dad, but he wasn't the dad at various times. To me, it felt like the dad when they were showing the flashbacks and they were bonding. But when it became like modern day present, to me, it was kind of just like, are you the stepdad? Those times to me, it wasn't hitting the notes. It wasn't exactly telling me, yes, this is your son. It kind of felt more of like, this is your student, or this is someone you probably have some care for, but not a strong care enough. But Timothee was able to really, really bring this kind of sincere and yes, he was going through this addiction, but at the same time, he had some charm to him, like when he was thinking he was sober, and he was interacting with people and being caring and loving. That you kind of just like, oh yeah, he's good, and then it goes back downwards, and you're just like, oh man, to the point that you care for him, you care, you want to support him. You're kind of just like, hold on, let me get in this movie, let me go tell him what to stop, that we love him or something along those lines. So yeah, it was very, very good performance that we actually cared for Nick. So I think that was really strong. So awesome. I can see him getting a nomination. I don't think he would win, but I don't. To me, as of right now, Steve Carell did not do anything that would say this is a standout performance.
Yeah, for sure. And it's also tough too because we kind of learned this at the end, but it was based off of. I mean, it was a true story, and it was based off of the movie was based off of a book, or I think it was like a memoir or something that was written. So it's like you have to kind of, once again, like having to kind of stick to the real life person and portray them accurately. I feel like that's always just
but I feel like you still can portray, unless this dad was exactly like Steve Carell, where it didn't feel like a very strong father-son connection. I felt like on the father side, I feel like Steve Carell could have done more. And I feel like it's the little things that should have mattered more. Because when he had a talk, yes, he was talking perfectly in the sense that you could understand that this is a genuine dialogue he's having with his son. But just like every other moments that maybe he's not talking to his son, didn't feel like it was heartbreaking for him to hear that his son relapsed and stuff. So to me, I felt like the little things could have made an impact that Steve Carell was just unable to show. Maybe he was thinking of it, but maybe he just wasn't able to show it. So
right.
But yeah, but I get what you're saying. It's tough with realistic portrayals.
Right.
Like the comparison would be like White Boy Rick, where that father son was really, really strong, and that one you really felt like they were actually caring for each other and wanted to, come out on top together. So, but
that's a good comparison actually. And speaking of the memoir, I actually read a article / review on someone who had read the memoir and who saw the movie, and they had, I didn't know this, but apparently Nick Sheff, that's his name, right?
Sure.
Apparently in his memoir, he had written about his time in San Francisco, and he did some prostituting, which was able to kind of fuel his drug addiction even more. So he would sleeping with men. And the guy who wrote this article was saying that it kind of doesn't discredit, but it takes away the impact. It kind of like plays down the roller coaster that drug addiction can take you on. So he was saying that they shouldn't have left that part out, because a lot of addicts who aren't getting money from one way, they like do resort to prostitution or things like that to fuel their addiction. Yeah. So he felt that was just a disservice to leave that part out. So I don't know. I just brought that up because I just read it, and it was just interesting because even when we were watching the film, I was thinking, I know he's getting money from, he keeps asking his dad for money, and he's, stealing money when he can. But there was a part of me that was thinking, like, I wonder what else he's doing. Because when you are, especially a drug like crystal meth, which is what he was addicted to, I mean, you do all kinds of things, for that. Like, and it's not a super cheap drug. Like, I mean, and I know this because I have people in my family that are addicted to it. So I was kind of watching the movie with that lens too, like going, kind of comparing what I've seen grow up as opposed to what I'm seeing on film. So it was interesting. I did question that. I was like, I wonder if he is resorting to like prostitution or things like that to fuel his addiction, because it does happen.
And no signs of that either. Actually, that's a very good point.
And I just wonder what the decision was on it to leave that part out, because he said it himself. Nick Sheff, the real life guy, said it himself. Like, he said before he published his memoir, he like sent it to his family members and like so they can read it to see if it was like doing too much. He didn't want to make them feel super uncomfortable, but he said the one thing that everybody collectively told him he should leave out was the part where he was prostituting. Wow. And he was like, why should I leave that part out? Like, why are you guys okay with my drug addiction being in it, but the fact that I prostituted is like so hush hush? Like he was really against it. So he kept it in the novel, in his memoir.
In the book movie.
Yeah, but then the movie just took it right back out. So it is just really interesting.
So they were thinking from a movie perspective. I don't see this playing out in a movie, so we need to leave
that's not the direction we're trying to go for. So we're just going to take that part out.
We're going to omit that part from the book.
But I think before I read that, I felt like this movie did do a pretty decent job at portraying drug addiction and the effects it has on not only the addict but the family. But then after I read that, I was like, dang, I wish they wouldn't have taken that out, because that would have only added more truth to his story.
Absolutely.
So that was unfortunate. But but I say that to say everywhere else, I felt like it did a really good job at portraying this. And I really liked, there were a lot of scenes that Timothee Chalamet wasn't even on screen, and we didn't know where he was. And we just were kind of hanging out with Steve Carell and just, waiting for him to pop back up.
Yeah.
So I really liked, I thought it was just really pretty accurate in that sense, because, you don't know where they're at, or if they're safe, and and you start to worry, and you're like, oh, should I call the hospital? Did they, And it's like in one of the scenes, he ended up all the way in New York, like, which is just insane. But once again, they did talk about that in the novel. But I don't know. I know you said you don't really have a whole lot of like experience with like knowing a lot of addicts or anything. But in terms of them portraying drug addiction, did you get the a real sense for it? Did it seem pretty realistic, or was it like, oh, this is just movie magic?
Just kind of a little bit of both. I mean, they didn't really show him actually doing the drug. Occasions they did, but a lot of it was just the reactions, and you can pick up that he relapsed. So I mean, this one kind of felt like it was sugarcoat as a movie, where it's not showing you the actual like process of it. And there's a few times where they show him sticking the needle, but I felt like it was enough. Like, we didn't really need to see him actually doing the drug to get it. I feel like that's where we're supposed to get that the character itself is just going through that struggle of he is doing it, and we know that. So I mean, yeah, it's kind of tough, because if they would have kept showing it, or they would have shown it often, I don't know if that would have helped us care for the character, because at that point you'd just be like, it's a lost cause. But whereas we see it a little bit, we think maybe there is potential. Maybe it's just like, well, you're not doing it enough. Maybe maybe you can stop. It's just if you just stay away from it. So I don't know. I feel like this movie kind of, to me, it was comfortable in amount, but I wouldn't be able to say whether it was like a accurate amount. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was comfortable enough, not for me to get uncomfortable with the character. Because I feel like if the character would have kept doing the drug and they kept showing it, then I kind of would have gotten comfortable with him. I would have been like, well, I don't want to, try to help you, because it didn't seem like you can be helped. Mm-hmm. And maybe I don't know if that would have helped maybe Steve Carell's character, if they showed that kind of like he is really fighting for this situation where his son's like deep in. You felt like he was deep in, but they never really showed it. But
yeah, I feel like they could have done I feel like they could have done a little bit better job actually showing. And once again, I guess going back to, if they would have kept the fact that he was prostituting, that could have showed exactly how deep he was into this, and how far gone he was in. Or they said that he stole money from his little brother, but we didn't see it. But I mean, maybe if we would have saw that,
a lot of telling instead of
it would have helped us paint a picture more.
Yeah, but I feel like this. And I can only think it as a studio, because I can't really say anywhere else. But I can only think that maybe they intentionally did that because they didn't either want to encourage, to be like, oh, this is how it's done, or
this is what you do. Take note,
right? A one-on-one, or they really wanted it to be, appeal to just a wide enough audience. Because if it did get heavy in that. In the same way that a movie has a lot of sex in it, you probably stay away from it. You probably like, oh, I don't want to see that because this looks, too much for me. Mm-hmm. So maybe that was the reasoning. And it is Amazon Studios, so it's one that probably is trying to think of as much people as possible rather than a specific number.
Of course. There was a point in the movie, maybe 2/3 way in, where Nick seemed to have it together. He was sober for 14 months, I think.
Yes.
He was helping with, AA meetings and NA meetings, and kind of giving his testimonial to this group of people and saying he had a sponsor. And I wasn't keeping track of the time. I didn't know how far into the film we were. So I thought that we were going to land it. I thought it was like, oh, it's going to end here. Like, great message. Like, they showed him struggling, but ultimately, it seems like all is well.
Yeah.
And then, no, that wasn't. He relapsed. And they did say in this film, and I think that's one of the key points to the film too, is just about drug addiction in general, is that relapse is part of recovery. That was one of the messages they were kind of driving, and from what I know, it is true. And he definitely had his share of relapsing in this film, probably 1 or 2 times more so than I thought it was going to be. I thought maybe they would have showed him relapse once, or maybe one good time. I thought,
that would make sense.
But he relapsed like
a
few times, and so we went back, like, he was sober and then he relapsed and then he went back to being sober and then he relapsed, and so it was like a lot of back and forth. But that's how it is. So I'm not trying to critique it. I'm just pointing it out. Like, it was more back and forth than what I thought it was going to be. And once again, I think it added to the story. So that was pretty cool. But then we get to a point where he did relapse and he's on the floor with a needle in his arm. And I for sure thought he was going to die. Like, I turned to you and I was like, oh, they're going to kill him. And the parents at the same time were at this meeting. And I think it was like, the meeting was for parents whose children or family members are going through it. And they were just saying, like, you're not the 3 C's, as one of the banners said. You didn't cause it. You can't control it. You can't cure it. Which I think was another important message of the film, because a lot of times, especially parents, they think that they have such a large hand in, the addiction, especially if their kid's going through it, and they think that they can fix it, they can cure it if I only do this for them, if I do that for them. But I think unfortunately that is not the case. So I think that was one of the points of that scene and one of the messages in the film overall, which was really nice. But yeah, I thought he was a goner. And you did too, yeah.
Yes, I mean, just the way that he was on the ground, almost lifeless, in the same way that his girlfriend, I don't even know if it was exactly official girlfriend, but it was just that girl he was doing drugs with that kind of looked like she was gone too. And luckily, that was not the end for her either. But yeah, it looked very, very real. Like, that was a moment where there's a reason why we're telling the story. It's because, never give up. Maybe that, I could see that message also being given. That could have been like, if that's what they wanted to, but yeah.
I think too, they captured a good, kind of mental, like, dilemma that people go through, where it's like they want to, we even had it towards the end of the film. Nick's mom was on one end of the phone crying, and she's saying, we have to help him, we have to do this, we can't give up on him. And on the other end of the phone call, Steve Carell was saying, basically, I've done what I can, he's gonna do what he's gonna do, like, and she's saying, but he'll die, and he was like, well, he'll die anyways, like, there's nothing we can do. So I think that I really, really liked that scene, because I think it was just really, really honest, and it shows that a lot of people go through that struggle. And it's like, and I don't know, I don't know what's right or what's wrong, but it's just like, you think you're helping someone and you're actually hindering them or hurting them even more. But then if you don't help them, you feel bad about it. So I think that they were kind of, especially the dad was kind of going through that. And one scene when Timothee Chalamet he called his dad and he was like, Dad, I want to come home, please. Like, I want to be sober. I want to come home. I should be with you guys. And his dad was basically like, no, that's not an option. Like, you basically, and what they tell you is you have to let the people hit their rock bottom. Yeah. So I feel like that, and that was that scene. Like, he was telling his son, like, no, like, this is not an option. Like, I'm not going to keep doing this with you forever.
Which is how we felt too, because we were both just like, we can't keep. It's a tough thing. That's what gets tough, because it's like you want to support every single time to show the love, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like they're wanting to be helped. So it's kind of just like, at what point do we have to say we tried, but we can't just do it anymore? Because he has his own life. He has 2 kids that he had to think about as well, in addition to Nick. So. Like, that's
true, yeah, and that was another thing. Like, Nick took up thank you for bringing that up, because Nick took up so much of his father's time, and mental space that it almost could come across as the father was neglecting the rest of his family. He had his wife and 2 children, but everything was about Nick because, Nick was going through this, and, maybe because it was his firstborn, and I don't know, maybe if that had something to do play into the factor, but yeah, that was like another big thing. And I kept thinking, like, I kept, every time they showed the wife, because they didn't she didn't have a ton of lines, but she would be in some of the scenes, and I always kept thinking, I wonder how what the wife is feeling. Like, she must feel pretty, I don't want to say neglected, but just kind of, must be hard, because that was her stepson. So it's like to have, you're supposed to like have, you have children with this man that you love, but your stepson, not saying because he's the stepson, but just because you have this other person in your husband's life and he's taking up all of his time and energy, and so like what's left for you? And
which at first you're just like, I understand, I get it, no worries, but it just accumulates more and more, and that's where it kind of goes with the whole like, we want to support you, but you're not trying to. It doesn't look like you're trying to help yourself. So how can we help someone? It's that saying that you can lead a horse to water, but if they don't want to drink, then it's that kind of situation. It was just like by turning their helping the hand, by stopping that, it looks bad, but at the same time, it's like they have other things that they have to consider, and they can't drop everything.
Yeah.
Because if they lose everything and he still doesn't get helped, or like he still finds himself in the same situation, then he literally is dragging everyone down. So
right.
Yeah, it's very tough.
Absolutely. So then we come to the last scene of the film. I guess he woke up in a hospital. He almost died. Steve Carell is walking him out into this like courtyard thing. They're both sitting there, and he just starts crying. The son, Timothee Chalamet, just starts crying, sobbing, and then hugs his dad, and we're left with that emotional moment.
And
then we get a little update on the real Nick Chef.
Yeah.
He's been sober for I think 8 years.
That's what it said. Yeah.
And I said a couple other things I don't remember, but that was the main part.
Yeah. I mean, it was very minor stuff. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing about like his life future, but just other than the 8 years.
So that was cool. I mean, it did leave you on, I guess, a good note at the very end. Like, hey, he did. He's made it 8 years so far. And hopefully he continues to make it with the rest of his, life and sobriety. So yeah, it was a beautiful story about a beautiful boy.
Is that the conclusion of this episode?
Did you have a favorite scene or a standout moment?
It's tough. I liked a lot of the.
I really loved the scene when he was shooting up in the bathroom. I really liked it.
No, I will say the times where Nick.
That was a joke. Sorry, I'm not trying to joke about drug addiction. That was just maybe not a good timed joke. Sorry.
But no, I would say that the scenes that really stood out to me were the scenes with young Nick, who to me, I just want to mention this, was really surprising that Jack Dylan Grazer and Timothee Chalamet look very
how similar they look.
They look like they could be like the younger version of well, obviously Jack has to be younger version of Timothy, but that was really because I was like, whoa. I was like, this really feels like it's a young,
yeah,
a young.
I didn't know he was going to be in the film.
Right, I didn't either.
I was like, Eddie from It,
Eddie, and he's also going to be in Shazam.
Yeah.
So we're going to see him again. But it was.
He's getting work.
Yeah,
that kid,
and he goes back to It too,
man.
But no, it really was those moments when he was bonding with his dad, because that established that love and care that you have as a parent to a son and vice versa, and then also the moments where. Timothy was doing well, or Nick was doing well, should I say? Because again, he was back to that lovable and happy person that was interacting with his siblings. That I remember like the scene that he came home and he was like, "Oh, they didn't want to see me," and they were hiding. The kids were hiding under the blankets in the living room, and so he just like threw himself. He's like, oh, "Okay, whatever," and they threw himself, and they're just like, "Oh no, we're here."
Yeah.
Or when he took him out and they were playing in the sprinklers, things like that were really just like.
Yeah.
Are heartwarming to be like, I could see as like Steve Carell's character, I could be like, yeah, that's a beautiful picture.
Yeah.
And then it just goes, and then it goes back dark, and it's just like, and that's where like it pulls at you because it's just like there's moments that's just like you can do it, but then it's just like that darkness just doesn't go away.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think those kinds of moments were my favorite scenes. No particular scene, but just things like that I really were just like heartwarming.
I agree. I told you stole one of my answers. I will say one of the scenes I did like, not that it was my favorite, but I really appreciated the scene where Steve Carell and his wife were at their two younger children's like recital thing. It was like a performance play kind of thing. And Steve Carell they were watching their children, but Steve Carell, you could tell he wasn't paying attention, and they were playing like the sound of ocean waves crashing in the background, kind of muffling the actual singing of the children. I really, really liked that scene because, like I said, I know a lot of his just kind of headspace was taken up by his son who was going through addiction. So it's like, even though it's one of those moments where even though you're physically there, you're just completely checked out, or you're not there at all mentally. So I really liked that because it was just pretty honest, and that's just how it is. But those heartwarming scenes that you talked about, those were also some of my favorites. The one when they were in the sprinklers, and he was kind of throwing his younger siblings through the water, and the dad was just laughing, and you could tell he was just so happy. Like, he was just utterly happy to see all three of his children laughing and having fun and being goofy. And it gives us those nice little breaks that we need, throughout the film, because we're seeing, all this bad stuff. Yeah, so it's like a breath of fresh air. And then I really did like the end scene, even though nothing really happened other than they just sat there and he started crying, but it was very just emotional. Like, I got pretty teary eyed on that part, and then how he just like reached for his dad, and it's like, because or at least this is what I got from it, that Timothee, Nick, I'll say Nick, that Nick just knows how disappointed he must have made his dad, and all the stuff that he's causing he's dragging his family through, all the turmoil and all the drama and chaos. So you could I felt like in that scene you could just almost feel the sense of guilt and despair and probably not so much hope. He's like, because he probably doesn't I'm sure he really, really does want to get help, but he's like, I don't even know if I can. Like, I don't even know if I can be fixed at this point, kind of thing. Yeah. So it was just a beautiful, kind of sad but beautiful scene, and a nice way to close it out, and then give us a cheerful update.
8 years.
So that's great. That's great for Nick.
Yeah, but it's a kind of a nice situation where it's like, well, he did 14, so it's like, I mean, yeah, he did 8, but
he did 14 months.
Well, 14 months, yes.
Yeah.
But it's still always with that, like.
But it's just like, you never know.
Yeah,
like,
it can happen.
You can relapse at any moment.
Yeah, there's no definitive like, oh, once you do 5 years, then you never go back. It
right.
Can be like,
it's like every day you just got to keep pushing every single day.
That's good though. Happy for him.
Yeah, for sure. So with all that said, Oscar, final real score.
Ooh, why you gotta hit me with that?
I'm sorry. It's got to be done.
So for this one, I'm going to choose not to. Just kidding. No, this one is going to be a 4 out of 5, because I feel like it really was a honest take on this situation, and it didn't really shy away from that darkness. It didn't show much darkness, but it didn't shy away from the character being so dark and lost, and that we see that the family tried to help. The family wanted to be there. The family was doing everything they can, both the mom and the dad, even the stepmom, his sponsor. It was just all that still was still not enough, and you would think like little things might make a difference. Like, oh, he has a girlfriend that's actually caring and, very interested in him, but no, it still wasn't enough for those things like that. Yeah, I think the more issues I would say would be more technical side of, of the movie itself. So it wasn't the story, but I felt like the dialogue for the dad sometimes was a little movie-like, and just I don't know if this 2-hour length was necessary. Maybe I feel like 20 minutes off of it would have been enough. Maybe that ending that he felt good. If the movie was going to end that he was going to feel, it was going to be at that point where he realized there's guilt and stuff. I feel like maybe that moment that you mentioned where he was, talking about it, that would have been a nice way to end it too. Because it still gets back to that same last thought of like, maybe there is going to be some hope. And then we get that message 8 years. So yeah. Maybe they could have reshuffled it a little bit too. I mean, I know it's a true story, so you can't just be like, oh, we're going to put that part first.
Right. But, exactly.
But yeah, that's just my thoughts of it. Yeah, 4 out of 5.
Okay. I hate when you do this.
match.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5 too. I thought it was really good. I thought it was depicted really well. Like I said, it could have gone a little darker. It could have showed a little more. So that's why, you know, my score is what it is. But at the same time, I do understand your point when you were talking about this, who's like the studio that's in charge of it. And obviously, you know, films, obviously they want as many people to see it as they can. So they're going to maybe play a little more safe route and go, okay, maybe we won't put all of that in there. We'll try to stay true to the story as much as we can, but we want a broad audience to see this film.
Yeah.
So I get that. I totally understand that. But I thought it was just, you know, it was I want to keep saying beautiful, maybe because the words in the title. It's not, I was gonna say it was a beautifully told story, but no, it was an honest told story. Yes. And I love when films do that. They just, you know, this is what it is. This is life. Don't act like
life itself.
Taking it back to episode 80, 80 something.
Was it in the 80s?
Wasn't it?
Maybe.
I feel like it wasn't that. Well, maybe it could have been late 70s.
3 weeks or 4 weeks can be a big.
That's true, because that's like 6 to 8 episodes ago. So very true. But anyways, that is my final roll score, 4 out of 5. So listeners, if you guys seen this film, definitely let us know what you thought. If you thought it was a pretty accurate portrayal of drug addiction, or if you think that it kind of shied away and downplayed it.
September 27th was when we did Life Itself.
September 27th?
Yeah.
So
3 weeks.
3 weeks ago, okay. So maybe it was like 70 something. Who knows? But anyways, check out that episode if you haven't. That was a pretty good episode as well.
I mean, we got to self-promote here. Just saying.
Remember, you can hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at Team Reel-ists, Team REELISTS, no dash, and also YouTube and iTunes. And I think that's it. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Thank you.